Hello everyone. This is as part of our revision class 1. We are going to discuss a very important topic for the upcoming Group 2 examination, that is public debt. Yesterday I have discussed few facts about the public debt concept, considering the one of the question for the next coming exam. In the same lines, we will take this topic. See, this topic is repeatedly in news. This is in news because the projections of IMF says that the debt to GDP of India will go very, very higher. So this projection was actually countered by our finance minister. She says that the debt to GDP of the country is quite lower. So what is this debt to GDP? See, this debt is nothing but debt to GDP is nothing but the overall debt to our GDP. How much is the debt which has been added or contributed to the our growing GDP? So how do you calculate the debt part? Debt is of two types. One is the country borrows internally, other one is from the external, that is out of the country. Internally means you borrow from within the country, okay? That is from the major institutions like RBI, like private institutions, banks, or the consumers like us. And external is nothing but the borrowings which you make it from other countries, okay? Other international institutions, other countries, or any of the agencies. So these borrowings will be made moreover in the foreign currencies. That will definitely have an impact with respect to the rupee. Volatility may make any sort of exchangeable issues that may impact your interest payments, what you have to pay, and this will impact your foreigners' interest, credit ratings. Okay, so external we don't prefer much. That's the reason it is somewhere around 18 percentage. And internal is what India borrow more, that is somewhere around 82 percentage. And this total debt which is there, it is increasing. It what our finance minister says that India's debt to GDP is continuously increasing, and it is actually not. See, FRBM Act, that is Fiscal Responsibility Budgetary Management Act, says the debt to GDP as suggested by NK Singh should be 60%. For example, if I consider the debt to GDP, how do you calculate debt to GDP part? It is nothing but the total GDP of the country by total debt. So, for example, sorry, total debt by total GDP. For example, total debt is 120 lakh crores and total GDP, okay, which is 200 lakh crores. So when we take this in percentage, it comes around 60 percentage. 60 percentage is the debt to GDP. So 60% which is debt to GDP, 40% is suggested with respect to the central government, and 20% is suggested with respect to the state government. So this 60% is quite high now, which is actually 82 percentage for government. Now, this 82% is what we used to have in 2024, we have in 2024, and we used to have in 2002, 2012. So this is what been said by finance minister countering to IMF. IMF says that India's debt to GDP is greater than 100%, which is wrong. So you can look at the other countries' debt to GDP here, like it is actually 81%, what I have given you the calculations. And when compared to other countries like Japan, UK, US, France, and China, it is very, very less. So debt to GDP of the country like India is very, very less. Now, who manages all this? First, look at this ministry, Ministry of Finance. There is a institution which is called as Public Debt Management Cell or Public Debt Management Department. So, Public Debt Management Cell, which comes under the Budget Division, under the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, has been coming up with submitting the reports. Okay, the quality of utilization of the debt with respect to our GDP is being calculated by them. Now, when you look at the debt to GDP, the increase in the percentage, there is an increase, but it is not 100%. So further, like it has gone, overall, how much is that securities debt we have to pay, we have to borrow, etc. That has been quite increasing trend. See, here government of India will definitely borrow, will be borrowing from the countries, like internally they will borrow. So internally, if they borrow, they have to borrow for the short term, they have to borrow for the long term. Long term, they issue some bonds. Okay, they can issue any of the instruments whose time period is greater than 1 year. Short term, they can issue some bills, okay, or other instruments which whose time period is less than 1 year. So on both of them, interest rate is calculated, okay, but this will be considered as part of the debt. From the public account, there is an sub-account which is being handled by NSSF, National Small Saving Scheme or National Small Saving Fund. So government which issues us any of the securities from borrowing of this fund that also been considered as a debt. So this is actually been mentioned in the also been mentioned as part of World Economic Forum's prediction, says that the global public debt. So World Economic Forum definitely suggests that or predicts that the global debt to GDP is increasing. That is, it is increasing. The major reason behind this is we can say it is because of the COVID that the states and the governments are more into the expenditures with respect to their revenue on the capital. So it is also been suggested by IMF, also World Economic Forum, also that the public debt of the global market it is going to be greater than the $100 trillion. $100 trillion. So for India, it is quite less, but for other countries like UK and US, it is increasing trend because of the high inflation what they used to have. So what is this public debt? What is the scenario of this public debt? Let us read here. So public debt basically it is the total debt of the country. Now I told you like what NK Singh committee has suggested as per the FRBM Act. FRBM Act is Fiscal Responsibility Budgetary Management Act. Fiscal Responsibility Budgetary Management Act, which says that the debt to GDP has to be 60%. Just now we studied this, and this 60% should be from both the sides, central and the state. So here it has been very clear that the debt to GDP has gone little bit higher, and in fact it has to be 60, but it is 80 now. So this present it is around 82%. So what is this public debt management agency? So it is an independent agency whose responsibility is to submit reports, or I just told you like how does that it is going to manage or how the debt is being utilized by the country. So here it has been again clearly said that it is just 81%, but what IMF projected is wrong. You can look at the other countries' debt to GDP, which is quite higher. This actually impacts credibility of the country if you go for more borrowings, and which actually has to be very, very less. So what are the implications? Implications means very simple. Budget constraints will be there because you have to go for expenditures. You have to also look at your receipts, your revenue expenditures, and your capital expenditures. So you have to compromise on this because this will impact your fiscal deficit. This will also impact your revenue deficit. So in this case, government cannot go for more borrowings because more borrowings will make you more interest, which is inclined with the inflation. That will definitely raise your FD. So how much you have to reach? 4.5% by 2025-26, which makes it very difficult for the government to reduce the FD. So fiscal deficit flexibility will not be there. Investor confidence. That means if your FD is very, very wide, and you yourself are into borrowing and making of the payments in terms of interest, that will eventually lead to the losing the confidence of the investors, and also the credit ratings which will actually impact you in the global market. Credit ratings are those ratings which based on those credits and ratings the foreigners will come and make investments in your country. And how is this? Just now I have told you how it is going to be. How do you manage this? That means you should have a proper fiscal discipline with respect to revenue expenditures and revenue receipts. Increase your non-taxable receipts and also increase your taxable receipts by reducing your tax evasions. Okay, and increase your tax avoidance. Give some benefits to the people so that they can voluntarily come out and make some investments. Next, you should structure your debt. Definitely structure your debt. Try to make sure that the interest payments are viable enough. Interest payments are viable. If you're going for more external borrowings, make sure that the dollar and the rupee or the foreign currency are much stable or flexible, which can actually be sustainable for you. Else, it will impact your definitely your financial strength. So why do the state goes for the basically borrowings? First, very important is they go for the infrastructure development. So the most of the infrastructure development are long term, and you have to spend it from your capital expenditures, which you make it from the borrowings. And social welfare programs are social welfare programs to develop the health, education, or any of the schemes or the other criteria for which the government will borrow. And borrowings are also made so that the external shocks which are there for the present government, which are facing because could be of the COVID, could be of the high inflation, could be of the any of the global crisis, could be of the demand supply criteria, unavailability of the resources, unavailability of the labor. All this could actually lead to the slowdown in the economy. So when the slowdown in the economy is there, it will impact the GDP of the country. So when there is less growth, then obviously you will go for more borrowings. And definitely, I mean, like he may ask you direct question, how it is that states GDP can be calculated. States individual GDP, states individual public debt can also be calculated considering the state provisions only. All right. So this is about the one question which you need to update. What is the present data of the World Economic Forum and IMF are projecting, and what is this ministry is talking about. So we'll come with the next topic in the next video, and we will be taking daily one video, and I will try to revise as many topics as possible. Thank you.